Welcome to Twisted Remedies. I'm your host, Justin Kucher, and this is a podcast about the benefits of jiu-jitsu and other non-traditional remedies in trauma recovery. My guest today is Professor Mike DesRosiers from South Burlington, Vermont. Mike is a black belt in jiu-jitsu, trains several martial arts, also first dan black belt in Japanese jiu-jitsu, 10 years in Muay Thai, lots of MMA, lots of in-ring experience, and is the lead grappling instructor at UFAI, United Fighting Arts Institute in South Burlington, Vermont. I rattled a lot of that off the top of my head because Mike is, UFAI is where I train, so that makes all of that easy for me to remember. For anyone listening who knows Mike, he also affectionately goes by Honey Badger, which I'll let him get into here at some point and talk about the origin of that. But Mike, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. Not a problem.
What got you started in martial arts across the board? What was your first kind of foray into that?
So basically, I'm old. I was born in the 70s. I loved a martial arts movie. So, like American Ninja,
Yep.
all that cheesy stuff, man. I loved it. And, I was like, oh, cool. That looks really cool. I want to learn it. Had a Taekwondo place that was near me that was friends of the family. I was like, I think I was 11 or 12 when I first, said, oh, I'm going to go try it. And it was actually held in our gym / cafeteria at our small elementary school. And I went there for a little bit and I was like, oh, this is really cool. I only did it for I want to say like a year or two. And then, I fell out of it. And then, I would train at home, like self-train stuff, like still, I'll try to keep going on that. Yeah. And that was my first, actual taste in martial arts. It wasn't anything, overly cool but it gave me a taste for it.
Right. And then, so where does it go from there?
So from there, basically, I started getting bullied. I think I was around 13 or 14, so right after Taekwondo, pretty bad. So, most stories with a lot of people who are in martial arts are, they were bullied. So, I started wrestling around with a lot of my friends, and I always got my ass kicked. I really started hitting the gym though and lifting weights, and I was like 16 or 17, and I got up to like 210. So I was pretty solid, and that kind of stopped all that. But it was always, in the back of my head that, hey, I want to do this more. And then I moved out of my hometown, which is Randolph, Vermont. It's really small, and there is absolutely nothing to do there. So I moved up to Burlington, and I was actually a bouncer. I don't know how far back you go, but Bambino's off of Shelburne Road in Burlington was where I started. I think I was 19 when I started there. And a lot of fights happened there. I discovered real quick that I couldn't just hit everybody. A lot of wrestlers were still, beating the shit out of me. So I was like, God damn it, okay. And then also in '93, I think it was October, was when the first UFC came out. And a buddy of mine's like,
right.
Dude, you really have to look at this. And, I was watching it and I was always, intrigued by the blood sport aspect of it, like art versus art, and that is, exactly what that was. And I was like, holy shit. Okay. So this hoist guy knows what's going on. And then I actually looked right in the phone book, because back then it was an actual book.
An actual paper phone book.
Yeah, right. And there was actually a place in Stowe, Vermont that, taught Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So I was like, oh, cool. So I hopped on the phone because, again, back then, internet wasn't really around. So I called the guy up, barely spoke any English, and told me where the place was. But, I never pulled the trigger on it. I knew where it was. I wanted to do it, but I just never pulled the trigger. So instead, I actually started taking Aikido. So, I mean, I took Aikido for 2 years, which is great in theory. However, it is horrible in practice. Horrible. I mean, I don't want to knock the art, but I mean, it's really only an art. So, I mean, I had fun doing it, but
Right.
it didn't work for anything. And then I think it was around 98. I said, you know what, screw it. I really want to get into this. So on the same day, I actually started Shaolin Kempo Karate and Japanese Jiu-Jitsu at a place on Church Street. And then later that night, I actually went to um, my first ever Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu class. So I started both on the same exact day. I can tell you my first class was probably like everybody else's class. I absolutely got my ass handed to me. No idea what was going on. I got beat up, and like right afterwards, I was like, "This is it. I love this, and I'm never gonna stop." And that's it. Sort of all. I mean, a package together. I also did do some Muay
Right.
Thai with a bunch of friends of mine. It wasn't anything overly formal, um, but I think I started that back in '94 because one of the bouncers at Bambino's, he knew some kickboxing, and he knew this, really tiny Thai guy who lived in Burlington who sort of knew some stuff. So yeah, but the jujitsu part of it, man. I mean, as you know, once you know, and that was it.
Right. So that's the one that really. I mean, you still obviously trained in other stuff, but jujitsu is the one that really got your attention and kept your attention.
Oh yeah, 100%. And as people know, it's probably one of the hardest arts in the world. And of course, my dumbass is like, hey, I'm never going to stop this, and I want to get a black belt eventually. So yeah,
Well, that worked.
yeah, yeah. A lot of aches and pains, and I mean, everybody's journey is different, but
Right. Right. Um, I'm interested. I've heard you talk a bunch of times about um, kind of your progression through things, and I know you have some opinions about like the some of the really traditional things that can go on in a school versus um, I know you had like you trained someplace and then you went and did your own thing, and there was some, I don't want to say controversy, but maybe
I can
that's the
tell
right
that
word.
story
But
if you want. It's one of my favorite stories to tell.
I mean, yeah, if you're whatever you're comfortable talking about, I think to the extent that if there's somebody else who finds themselves in a similar thing and has
Sure.
questions on how do I handle this, I think you have been through a lot of these things.
Yeah. So for those that don't know, I mean, part of my split from my original school was, he said, hey, don't ever mention, that I was your professor and all this other stuff, which I really don't get because, I was there for what, 10 years, and he's a really good instructor. I mean, it's where I got almost all of my BJJ. So I mean, that kind of baffled me. But I was like, oh, okay, cool, okay, whatever works for you. So basically, with my old professor's blessing, I was allowed to teach over at UFAI. I think I started that in '08. It might have been '06. I could be completely wrong on that, but and I mean, I was paying my monthly dues and everything. I was still training over there. I was only teaching on Saturdays. I was only um, I was only allowed to teach nogi, so I was just doing nogi. Um, and then I remember it very, very vividly. One day, I think it was three of the black belts there actually stopped by the school, and they said, "Hey, how are things going?" I said, "Oh, great, whatever." And they're like, "Listen, so you're never gonna get your black belt." And I was like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah." So he was talking to us, and he said, "I bet you're never gonna get your black belt because you're not a great teacher, and your jujitsu's bad, and all this other stuff." And I was like, "What the hell?" I'm paying this guy. He was like a brother to me for a long time. I actually helped him um, run his MMA event in Vermont. I was like, oh, okay, that's weird. So, I thought about it for a while, and I was like, okay, well, I should just split. I'll let bygones be bygones. So I actually had a sit down meeting with him. I was like, hey, I don't think I don't think that I want to, train with you anymore. It's nothing against you, but I kind of want to do my own thing. And right then and there, was like, oh, okay, I understand completely. Good luck, in a nutshell. Um,
Right.
so I was like, oh, cool. And then, I started teaching and doing my thing. And then it was like months later, um, me, me, me and Deb and Chris all got served with an order saying that, I can't teach a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu because he owns it. So then we went to, Chris's lawyer, and his lawyer's like, no, fight this. It's an easy fight. And as soon as we pushed back, he dropped the whole thing. But I mean, it was a mess for a while, and I was like, oh, I don't get that part of it. But I mean, a lot of
Right.
people
And so
also.
for
Sorry, go ahead.
for perspective, you were a brown belt when this all happened, right? Like
Correct.
this wasn't like you were a blue belt going to teach somewhere
No,
and he got
no,
sideways.
no,
This
no.
was you're a brown belt who's been doing this for for quite a
Yeah.
while.
I think I got my brown belt around '04. It might have been '03. So I was about a 3 or 4 year brown belt at this point, and I was seeing guys, who, I mean, I consider friends, but they were getting their black belts, and I was like, wait a minute, I started 3, 4 years after, or sorry, before these guys. Something's going on, and I was training probably 5 or 6 days a week steady, because I mean, I had the bug, as you know, and I was always the
Right.
first one there and last to leave, and so something was going on. Was the point there.
Yeah.
And I know that there's been some other people who have split from this place who have had the same exact thing happen to them. So I don't know why. I don't know. I mean, it shouldn't happen, but I mean, it does.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned the bug and a couple of times, and I'm curious if you what is it about jujitsu that grabs a hold, like it grabbed a hold of me, and I don't want it to let go, but it's not going to let go. And I
Right.
like to the point where I've got my knees are jammed up. I got a bad toe now. My fingers screwed up today.
Oh no, it just gets worse, man. It
Which
just gets worse.
obviously I know it comes. I'm preaching to the choir, but or the choir director. But like, what is it about jujitsu that just gets us?
So I mean, for everybody, it's different. And I mean, being a teacher for as long as I've taught, I mean, I've been doing this for what, 26 years now. And I mean, I've seen a lot of different journeys for people. Um,
Yeah.
I can say for me, I mean, I've never been one to just sit on my ass. Even as a kid, I was always out hiking. I would just be gone for hours and hours, just walking through the woods and getting in trouble. A bridge jumping, swimming, like all that stuff. Like I've never been known to sit around. And as soon as I did this, I was like, okay, this is really hard. So I mean, I want to learn it. I'm getting my ass handed to me. Like, I was a big dude, and I mean, I wasn't, untrained, but I mean, I felt like a child, and I was like, okay, I need to learn this. Whereas,
Right.
some people, when that happens to them, they never come back because they can't handle it. But I mean,
Right.
I'm the opposite. I was like, holy shit, I need to learn this. This is a superpower. And I mean, ever since, I've just been going and going. I mean, my body is really telling me to stop over the last like 5 years, but I don't listen to it.
Yeah, I'm apparently of the same the same wiring
Yeah.
because I'm listening, but I'm not listening that well. So
Yeah. So as you know, there's a lot of um, former military at our school, law enforcement,
yep.
and I hear from them that so they have the same camaraderie with people because we are all on the mats battling. So basically,
Right.
we're all there together, and we're all suffering through it, but it's fun. Some days it's not fun, but most times it's fun, and we all, I can talk about it with each other because I mean, we're all there in it. Um, and a lot of vets have saying the same thing who, have been dealing with, a lot of hard PTSD, like they've just been lost and then they start doing jujitsu. And I mean, I've had guys that are going, holy shit, this has really saved me,
Yep.
and that feels good to, hear.
Yeah.
So,
That's essentially what it, I I thank Dave every time I see him, because Dave inviting me to come to class was essentially, I'm still here because of that. And that's,
yeah, yeah,
that was a big part of my recovery is finding jujitsu. And it's 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 funny, you said some days aren't fun. Even the days that aren't fun, though, at the end of like, they're still fun. It's
afterwards,
just
it's,
there's a certain amount of suck. Yeah, there's suck involved, but but
yeah,
after, it's fun.
yeah. Like I tell people, like, I
Yeah,
mean, everybody hits those walls and they don't want to train. And I tell people, I was like, show up anyway, because afterwards you're going to feel so much better. Like there's days where, I am
yep,
hurting, I've worked all day, I don't want to go to class. And then I go to class and afterwards I'm like, oh, thank God I went to class, you know?
yeah,
So,
yeah. That was actually Friday for me. I was driving in there and just, in a funk and angry and you
yeah,
just in a mood, and I got there, and by the time I left, I had big smile on. I was talking to Sergio today, and he was like, I could tell the difference from when you walked into the door to when you left, that there was so it's
yeah,
such a bizarre thing how it can flip a switch for you and get you back
yeah,
on track.
100%, 100%.
Yeah. On the top, so the situation you described where you ended up, going and kind of leaving the school you were at, it's interesting. There's I mean, I haven't been doing this a fraction as long as you have, but I see these, like, there are schools where people are encouraged to go and train other places, and and come back and see what's out there. And then there are places that are like, you won't talk to anybody about this. Don't go anywhere else. If I hear you're going somewhere, you know,
Yeah,
you have always been very encouraging for people. Hey, go try this other thing out. Go try this other place out. Train everywhere. What are your thoughts? Like, why is that an important approach? Because I agree with you. I think it's important to get other perspectives and other
yeah.
things.
I mean, the biggest thing for me, and I mean, a lot of my friends who still train at this other place still feel this way. I'm not going to throw them under the bus, but, you know,
Yeah.
so back when I was training, where I was training, it was very old school in that, you couldn't go to other open mats. You couldn't go train anywhere else. Had to be at a affiliated gym. Um, you know, if this person saw any social media posts or photos of you training at another place, and this actually did happen, um, he would just basically, excommunicate them. And one thing that was said a lot, and I just found out probably over the last year from some people who asked me, if this could be done, is that, so this certain person was saying, hey, um, I mean, if I ever throw you out, then you'll be banned from IBJJF. And I was like, that's not a thing. I said, that's no. So that isn't a thing. Um, and they didn't know that until I explained it to them. So, I mean, I felt kind of trapped there because, I wanted to go, and see some friends who trained elsewhere, and go roll elsewhere. And a lot of us did, but we couldn't talk about it there. We couldn't have photos of it, and it just felt like,
Right.
why am I paying this guy to show me something? He's not my father. He's not my boss. It's a service that, he's offering. So, I mean, it's not right. And that's been my mentality, like people, people come to me because they want to learn, a jujitsu. Cool. I can do that. And if somebody wants to go, do an open mat or go train somewhere else, good. Go train. As long as you're training, I don't give a shit. Go train. Because then,
Right.
I mean, I've had people leave and come back and they're like, hey, thank you for letting me do that, because your whole, um, a mentality and teaching method really fit with me. So, I want to be here. I said, great. What'd you learn over there? Show me some stuff. and vice
Right.
versa. So
Yeah. I mean, I think that makes a ton of sense. That I've never in the 3+ years I've been training, I've never understood and like, I love these, like the Globetrotter camps I go to, and there's so much.
I'm going
It's
next
the
year.
same stuff, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm going to Arizona in next month.
Oh, are you going to Maine too?
I'm not sure. I might. I haven't bought my ticket yet, but if I may pick one up at the last minute, we'll see.
Gotcha.
But yeah, we'll see. But it's like there's so much. It's a lot of it's the same, but there's such nuanced little things about the way somebody else shows it, or some little component to, like, we did a thing last year. It was a basic head and arm choke, but it was this little tweak and kind of concept around it that just was like, oh my god, why didn't it's such a great thing to pick up stuff, and I think it just makes everybody better. So I've never really understood.
Yeah, and it's funny that you say that too, because I mean, me and Dennis and Craig were talking about the other day, like, hey, as a black belt, it's those little tiny tweaks and like small, like easy, simple, stupidly simple adjustments that just blow our minds, because one, holy shit, it makes sense, but two, we never thought of this, and we've been doing this for a long time, and it's like, oh my god, like, so this small grip that changes the whole move is just like, and I mean,
Yep.
it's great.
You said this at I think it was promotion night back in July. You had said you were joking about how you're not losing people at blue belt anymore because you guilt them, like we're so on top of, like, you can't quit, and now it's like purple belts. As soon as they get purple, they're dropped.
I screwed myself on that one. Yeah. So I mean, so with that, I mean, when I was coming up, it was what, late '90s, early 2000s. Internet wasn't really huge. I mean, MySpace was big. I miss MySpace. That was so much fun. Facebook had to have a college account. So I mean, there wasn't a lot of knowledge online. It was all books. Like, I have a shit ton of books here. But now everybody knows about the blue belt blues. About a lot of people quit at blue belt. Back then, it's like you had no idea. I was like, why do I want to quit right now? Why do I suck? Like, what is this? So I mean, I try to tell people everything that I've learned, like, right there, straight out in the open. Like, you are gonna want to quit at blue belt. Trust me, push through it. So I mean, I'm in everybody's head. Don't quit, don't quit, don't quit. So then, like, once they get purple belt, it's kind of like a, and then I'm like, God damn it, no. But yeah.
Do you think so? Whether it's somebody who didn't listen and they go at blue, or they wait till purple and hit eject, is it because they plateau and they don't know how to ride that out, or is it like, what is it about that level?
It's life. I mean, I can tell you. I mean, it's life. like, I mean, there's no secret. Life does not want you to do this all the time, because people get married, you have kids, work is all over the place, trips come up, you get injured. That's a big one. People get injured, and I mean, we don't want to sit out, so we train injured. It makes it worse, until finally we're like, oh shit, I need to go get this looked at, and then surgery. Okay, well, surgery. Now you're down for weeks or months. Okay, I mean, in that time period, your body starts feeling great, but you're pissed off because you're not doing jujitsu. But you're like, holy shit, my arm feels great.
Yeah, nothing hurts.
I'm not going to go to class for an extra week or two. I'm going to do some fun stuff I haven't done before, and then that turns to months, and then you're like, shit, I got to go back to jujitsu. And then when you do go back, all those people that you could beat up before are now handling you because they've been training. So you're like, oh my god, I suck. So now you stop. I mean, that happens a lot. So
Yep.
Yeah.
What's your advice for just plateaus at any whatever level somebody's at? If they plateau, what's the course?
People hate my answers. I'm sure you've heard me say it. People people hate my answers. Like I have people go, hey, how do I get out of a triangle? And I tell them, don't get stuck in a triangle. They hate that answer, but figure out why you're getting stuck in a triangle. Don't, you know, then we'll work from there. And then like, I have
Right.
people go, hey, I'm at a plateau. What do I do? Show up. Like I have people, they hate that answer, but that is the absolute secret to jujitsu is keep showing up. Everybody learns different. Everybody has different styles. Some people are just thick headed and keep doing the same dumb shit all the time. That's fine. Keep showing up because even on the days where you suck, you're still getting better. You don't see it, I see it. And I mean, people hate that answer. I mean, it's pretty disheartening because, they want a 1, 2, and 3. What do I do? 1, 2, and 3.
Right.
Show up. We can work on the rest, but keep showing up. I can't help you if you're not showing up.
Yeah, a lot of people want the formula of, but what little thing can I do here? Yeah, and so the formula is show up.
Yeah, and I can help him with that. I mean, so Gavin, he was a big one. He's like, Mike, I'm out here, and I'm the highest belt. You know, before all the Tim Kennedy and all those people started kicking his ass, which is great because he needs
Right.
that. But like, he was the highest one out there. He's with white belts. He's like, how do I get better? And I'm like, that's a good question because when I went off on my own and I was teaching, I started from zero. I had white belts. I was a brown belt, and I was still heavily competing. So I had to still train hard. How did I do that? I would put myself in the dumbest spots possible. The dumbest, like I would put myself in danger on purpose to try to work on getting out and stuff because, nobody could get me there because they were white belts, or, smaller than me. Like, I'm not a small guy. So, I mean, if I'm working with a small person, I'm not going to smash them on top. I'm going to, here's an arm, take it. Now I'm going to fight out of it. And I mean, a big thing is, don't always try to win. Like, we are all apes. Like, we
Right.
are all gorillas. We're all, like, we want to win. When you're at the school, try dumb shit. Like, I tell people, I was like, just try stuff you've never tried before. Just try it. It's a lab. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. If it works, now you're on to something. Build on it. And that's how people come up with moves. Like, I come up with the dumbest stuff that works because I just put myself in danger and I'll try stuff. So, but yeah, it's hard for us to want to lose. But a lot of people, I see them rolling and they get frustrated because they're getting their ass kicked and they're like, I suck, I suck, I suck. It's like, nope, don't try to win. Try to learn stuff. And that took me years to understand.
Yeah. Well, and I think I think sucking is part of the journey. Like that's
Oh yeah.
if like unless you're some, phenomenal whatever, I think that's necessary for all that the learning that you're talking about. That's necessary to get to that learning. Otherwise, there's I don't know. It seems necessary. I don't enjoy it always, but it seems necessary.
That's true. Yeah. I mean, there's days, where I can't do a move to save my life, and it's just like, man, I'm just not feeling it today. But then there's those, I call them the juggernaut days, and I've had probably 5 or 10 in my whole 26 years where nobody could touch me, no matter what rank they were. Like I could catch anybody, and I was like, holy shit, this is great, but it's rare, very rare.
Right.
But, yeah. Like there's still, two guys to this day I've never even come close to tapping, and it just drives me nuts. It's just a joke that I have with them, and they're high level, and I always give them shit. As I'm rolling, I was like, dude, I'll give you $20. Just let me tap you just one time. Come on, just one time. And one guy says the same thing every time. No, Mike, so you'll get me someday. And I was like, there's no way I'm going to get you. I've never even come close. And it's my first partner ever. It's Bob Hughes. He runs a Hughes, a BJJ over in Plattsburgh. And he was my first partner ever. To this day, I cannot touch that man. He is just a freak in nature. He is my idol in jiu-jitsu. And he's amazing. He's amazing. But just one time, Bob, just one time.
You just got to sneak up on him.
Oh, God, I tried. He's a great guy,
though. For me, it's like, because I started this way later than I wish I had, I'm to the point where everybody I roll with currently is younger than me, and it's some by 10 or 15 years, which is, and it took me a little while to wire myself to, this isn't, I don't need to win. The fact that I'm here and even in the fight with these people is a victory as far as I'm concerned. And it's, so for me, that's like, I try to experiment at times and be like, oh, let's see what happens if I put my leg here. Oh, that didn't work. And, or it does. And I think that's a, when you can wrap your head around that is so beneficial to training.
Yeah. Yeah. Take that, and now you're, a smaller female. That's even way more intimidating to, have a female in there trying to battle all these guys, and I mean, Gavin's wife, Laura, is a perfect example. She was my first black belt. She didn't get any special treatment. And as she tested at the same time as 3 other people, and she is the only one that made it. Like she put in a lot of work, but that is a much harder journey than, a lot of us have had, just because, of the physical, part of it. And then, of the whole mental part of it. Like there's all these alpha males, strong dudes that are, fighting for their lives while rolling with a female because they don't want to get tapped by a female. It's just, I can't imagine what that.
Or swept.
Correct.
They don't even want to get swept.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I've said this. I said this, I think, in Gavin's episode too. There's a certain amount of mindset that you have to bring to this, that just to stay in the game, because he described it as, I think he said it's like brutal and demoralizing or something. I forget how he worded it, but it can beat you up if you let it. So you really have to have the mindset of, I'm not going to quit, and I just have to keep showing up.
Yeah. And I mean, we are all alphas. Like anybody that does this is an alpha. So it's a room full of alphas, and now there's egos that are starting to clash because it's alpha versus alpha. One person's going to win. So now, how does that sort of play into it? It's a lot of mental hurdles. And that took me a long time to figure out, like I always heard, oh, martial arts are mental, which, okay, I understand the whole, oh, well, I have to learn these moves. I have to know when to put these moves in. But then the whole part of, holy shit, I'm getting my ass handed to me. Everything hurts. I don't want to do this. That's mental.
Yeah, I think for me, I almost think that starting later, because I didn't have, I wasn't in my 20s and didn't have the physicality to bring that to it. It forced me into more of a, the relying on the mental side of things. And certainly when I got sick and was, at the gym with my freaking grappling dummy in the back of the room and a mask on,
that's just
the
crazy,
mental piece.
Man.
The mental piece is what kept me there. But it, cause it wasn't, I had no immune system and there was no physical, cause
I know.
that was that.
I mean, dude, you kept showing up. You were doing what you were doing. Like that's balls, man. I mean, I have my injuries, and I try to train through it. But someone that went through what you went through, and you still dug in and did it. That's fantastic.
I felt like I had to. Like I didn't want to lose. Not that I was even. I mean, I couldn't train with somebody, but I didn't want to lose the camaraderie of that. It was incredibly powerful, and just being there with other people that those are like, this is the family. I need to be here.
Yeah,
it was. It was just one of those things. I had to be there in whatever capacity I could be, whether it was taking pictures or sitting with a gi on, just or with no gi on, just watching or whatever, and just it was. I found it necessary, even though it was. My oncologist was not super thrilled with the idea, but
yeah, doctors. I've learned a long time ago. Doctors don't understand jiu-jitsu. Mine does. So my ortho loves me. Like I haven't seen him for years, and he knows all of my injuries are from jiu-jitsu, and he knows, he's gonna fix me, but I'm still gonna keep going. So I mean, his speech now is, "Hey, Mike, I know you know this, but I have to tell you this. Take like 6 weeks, 8 weeks." And I was like, "Yeah, yeah, I hear you." And it's usually like 1 week, 2 weeks, and I'm still doing dumb shit. But yeah, I'm sure your doctor was just like, "Oh, we shouldn't do that."
Yeah, well, she's like, you won't have an immune system. And I was like, well, I just won't touch anybody.
Yeah.
I'll just I just need to be there. And yeah, she didn't get it, but she was, ultimately she acquiesced and was like, okay, like do it, you have to do what you have to do.
Right.
But again, it's, and the whole kind of premise of this podcast is, it is the mental health benefits that this thing, for me anyway, and for other people I've talked to, is so powerful that it's
Yep.
it's almost like I don't want to stop because I don't want to go back to where I was. So
Yeah.
Injury
Yeah.
or not, like, I think that's, for me, that's the draw, is I have to keep doing this.
Yeah. Like me coming up, I mean, I had my own issues. I was never in the military or stuff, but of course, I had my childhood traumas, had all my stuff, and hearing like Gavin and all those guys who have seen combat and have had the PTSD, and like I see them all sitting there talking, and they have me come in and I'm sitting there with them and talking, hearing all the stories. Like it's just mind blowing how much this helps that aspect of it. Because again, as much as they I guess have the PTSD from battle and all that, they still miss that adrenaline battle part of it. And I mean, that's a piece of it. So I mean, and Gavin said, I'm on that mat. I mean, I'm fighting for my life against somebody who basically, when you tap, that means that I could have died because or been hurt. He's like, it's that whole rush.
Right.
It's good, it's fun, but it's safe. So, I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah, you still get to do that, the warrior piece, and you've
Yeah,
got all the structure and all these other things, but there's a level of safety to it that you can keep doing it more than once.
correct. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. As far as injuries, so I know you and I have talked a couple of times about, you're significantly banged up and put back
That's
together
a nice
several
way to say it.
times,
Yeah.
like an erect. what how do you stay on the mats? Like, what's the formula to, and you touched on this a little bit about not listening to your orthopedic, but there's a certain amount of like training smart involved in that. I'm sure that it's not just, throwing
Yeah.
caution to the wind.
Don't do what I'm doing because it's not good. But I can tell you that, this year has been the hardest year for me because, I had two really bad sicknesses. I mean, I had the norovirus. I thought I was going to freaking die on that. I was in the ER twice. I actually have an appointment tomorrow to have my knee fully replaced, and sort of set that up. Um, that's been the biggest one because, I mean, in 92, I went through a dashboard. I shattered my tib, fib, everything. I was
Ooh.
on crutches for 2 years. It was my senior year. Like, it was just this whole thing. I got the whole, I'll never, I'll never walk again for a little bit. And then, oh, well, you'll never run or play sports again. And of course, I said, fuck that. And I, did everything. A back herniation
You were like,
from my,
hold my beer.
yeah, yeah, that too. But, yeah, and then just for me, I just being a dumbass and just hiking, and bridge jumping and, just doing stupid shit. Like my body is just broken. I had my elbow surgery earlier this year. Now my other elbow is acting up. I mean, I think I fractured my wrist like 8 weeks ago, so I'm still dealing with that. It's just, I'm a mess. So I mean, I am slowing down. I mean, I'm not rolling as much as I used to, and when I do roll, I'm playing very passive on the bottom a lot. Like, I mean, I still attack from the bottom, but I mean, I'm not really trying to stay on top because I mean, I can't kneel that long. It's just, I'm just an absolute mess. A lot of that is also from years and years of a lot of heavy competition and competition training. I mean, I was doing probably at least 3 to 4 a year, easy. And of course, I just have to stay in shape for that. And I would always cut up to like, I think my highest cut was 28 pounds. Um,
Wow.
I think it was about 48 hours I did that one. I mean, it's just, I haven't been nice to my body. I really haven't. So people who really, really, really compete, like Gordon Ryan, he's going to break down when he's older. I mean, and a lot of these people, like the injuries are going to be crazy, but I mean, if I could go back, I would probably want to compete more. I would want to get more in. So I mean,
Right.
it's just it's going to happen. If you do this long enough, it's going to happen, you know?
So it's train as smart as you can, but
Yeah.
and know your, know your limitations really.
And don't train as hard as I did for as long as I did, like, I mean, I had my first MMA fight, I was 40. So yeah, don't wait so long.
So what is the origin of honey badger?
So that actually came from Chris Ballard. So I think it was my first cage match. So it was a grappling match only. It was for XCP. Man, I forgot when that was, but I mean, I did a lot of Nagas. I did a lot of, grappling industries, like all these other tournaments, which, if you've ever been to one, you don't know who you're going against, how many people are in your bracket. You're sitting on your ass for 6, 8 hours and you're hurting because it's a wooden floor in some hot gym in some high school somewhere. So, I heard, oh, cage match, I know who my opponent is. I know how long it is. I know about when it's going to be. So, I'm going to do this. So I mean, I was training hard for that, and I remember like it was me and my best friend Tom, um, who's in Winooski. We would just train nonstop. Like we'd go to the gym, we would do Thai, we would do grappling, and it's just like we were just nonstop. And Chris mentioned, hey, Mike D's like a honey badger, like he doesn't give a fuck because I was just keep training and going and going, and like I was hurt, and I was like, no, get up, let's go, let's go, and so that's where it came from, and that's I'm really big on don't ever a nickname yourself, like have somebody else do it. So I didn't have one until then.
I figured it had something to do with that old meme that was out with the honey badger. So
Yeah, well,
that's
there it is right there, the honey badger. So yeah, it just stuck, man.
That's good stuff. The so and then I should have touched on this earlier, but I'm all over the place tonight because I trained today and I'm tired. the so once you get to UFAI and you're not really under anybody, but then you eventually, like, at what point do you get affiliated with Nick, and how does that all come about?
So I mean, I was talking to a lot of people. I was on my own for 8 years, I think it was. I was a brown belt for 11 years and 3 months, I think it was. Like at first I was like, oh, whatever, I just want to teach people. It's, it is what it is. But I mean, I could only belt people up to purple belt, and I was like,
Right.
I want to be able to get people higher, like it wasn't so much about me, but I wanted to give people more, you know what I meant? So, I mean, I started looking around. I was actually talking to Robert Drysdale for a while. Um, I almost went on with those guys because, they were good guys. Um, I even looked into, starting my own association as a brown belt to see, what I could do with that, but that was a dead end. Um, and then I started talking to Nick and his partner at the time who ran the Jiu-Jitsu Brotherhood, and it was just like an instant, just like I was on social media for hours just talking to those guys, and like everything just fit. I was like, hey, what do you guys think about cross training? They're like, oh well, it's stupid if you don't. I was like, oh, okay, cool. What about gis? He's like, who cares what you're wearing? Who cares if it's in white? Who cares what patches are on it? Because that's a big thing. Like, only wear a white gi, don't have patches on it.
Right.
Who cares?
Yeah.
Wear whatever you want. Who cares? And I was like, okay, this fits. And then I signed on with Nick, and I think he flew out like 2 or 3 months afterwards, and I had no clue what was going on. I mean, it's my first time meeting him. We brought him shooting. It was me, Gavin, Laura, like everybody brought him shooting, and they started asking me questions. Um, and then he beat the absolute shit out of me when I was sick. Like I was just getting over sick, and actually a neck fracture. So I mean, he was rolling with me and beating the shit out of me. I was like, this is great. This is fantastic. And then he gave me my black belt. Yeah, I wasn't ready for that. Like I think I only knew him for like, in person for like maybe a day, and then that happened. But I mean,
Right.
rolling on the mat, he could, see it, and obviously talking to me, I think I came off well. So yeah, so I've been with him now for 9 years.
Very cool.
Yeah.
You were a big part of, at least from my understanding, you were a big part of establishing the like Vermont Police Jiu-Jitsu program that is like hosted at UFAI that Sergio's currently running, and
Yeah.
you tell me about how that came to be, and like I know what it took on a little bit of what it took on the police side, but what did
I
that?
know some of it on that side too because I mean, Dave. I
Yep.
first met Dave when I was bouncing downtown. That's a story all in itself, but he was like on his first month. Ever since then, we were just, clicked. And we're both, the same with how we, talk and all that stuff. So, he started when I think I was a purple belt. He started where I was, and we just, trained for a long time. And then he stopped for a bit, and I, went over to UFAI, and then he came with me. Um, and then I remember that he had I think he bought like 10 privates. He's like, look, here's this system, that I want to bring down to the police academy. Here is, all of it on paper. I want to go over everything with you, and I want you to just, help me with it. I was like, okay, cool. So for 10 sessions, we sat there, and we worked on some stuff. It wasn't GST, it was the ground fighting program that actually predated GST. Um,
Yep.
so, I mean, he rolled that out, and he told me stuff that he was doing on his end. He's like, as you know, law enforcement officers, they don't want to, do a lot of extra because you're working a lot, you're stressed out, you already have your mandatories, you already have all this, and you know how hard it is for people to just do their mandatories. They're not going to want to do this extra, but they should. The whole deal. Anyway, so then Dave rolled that out, and it was great. And then I think it was Dave and somebody else went down to GST, but I think Dave was the first one to go down. I think.
Yep.
I mean, and
I
he
think
came
so.
back and he loved it. He's like, Mike, here's all this stuff. Here's what I did. This is great. So, and then it just kind of went from there. But I mean, he's been trying for a long time to get that going, and me and Deb and Chris are like, here's the space for it. Use it. Like Burlington PD and Winooski PD, even St. Mike's when I was there, we were all using that space because Deb and Chris were like, use it. Here's a key. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think the big. I mean, I was part of some of the later conversations when he was getting the blue belt kind of program up and running, and I feel like there was obviously uninformed stigma from some of the administrators at the time who were concerned that it was contrary to what we should be showing people and all of that, and it baffles me that. I mean, I've said this on other episodes. I was probably 20 or so years into my career at that point, and I had been in a few scraps, and I'd been lucky. And Burlington, it was great because back in the day, 10 people would show up when something happened, so there was always plenty of backup. And I'm a good talker, so I would talk my way out of stuff and calm people down. But knowing what I know now, I'm amazed that I didn't have more issues, like more use of force, like things go bad because I didn't know, and I don't know if you have any insight on why it is that getting cops, especially, to show up to train is so difficult.
I mean, I think I said it. I mean, before my job now, I was sort of in the same spot, but I was a training officer where I was, and just getting people to do their mandatories was like pulling
Right.
teeth. And I get it, like they're working overtime. The job sucks a lot. Not a lot of people, like you. Administration has your back to your face. It's like so you're stressed out all the time. But now oh shit,
Yeah.
now I have to do my MDTS. I don't want to do that. And even just that, like watching people do the MDTS, I'm like, holy shit! If this person ever has to try to get into a fight, they're gonna go up. Like it's not gonna
Right.
be hands. It's gonna be taser, or it's gonna be lethal because one, they're scared shitless, but two, they don't know what they're doing, so their brain's gonna go, oh shit, lethal. Which is
Yeah.
what happens a lot,
Yeah.
now with a lot of people doing a BJJ, and I'm sure I'm sure you've seen people just kind of, they are a lot calmer at situations because you know that you can handle yourself. Like no matter how
Right.
big they are, you're like, oh, okay, well, I can handle this. He's okay, or she's okay. Females are the worst. I hate going hands out with females. Holy cow, they try to kill you. Anyway, it's like, oh, okay, so I can handle myself. And then that person's like, oh, this guy or girl, no, like they look like that they can handle themselves, so they're not as apt to go to that level, if that makes sense. But I mean,
Right. Right.
a lot of people, they don't want to do that extra. Are you paying me to do this extra? No. Okay, well then I'm not going to do it. So I think that's a big one. And then also, the whole ego thing, like, every cop that I know of, or even, a military, it's that gorilla thing. Oh, I don't need that. I can handle myself type of stuff.
Right.
So,
Yeah. Until they can't get out of mount by somebody
right.
who weighs way less than them.
Yep. Yeah, true.
Yeah.
And now, I mean, after that, are they going to come back and go, oh shit, I just got my ass handed to me. I need to find out why. Or are they going to go, nope, I can't handle that. I'm out. Which 9 times out of 10, it's nope, I can't handle that. I'm out.
Yeah, it's weird that's like, I mean, I guess I'm not wired that way because I came back, I had to keep coming back, but I guess I just don't understand the mentality of I don't understand this, and this is something I couldn't overcome. So
Yeah.
I had a guest recently who I was editing his episode yesterday, and he said we were talking about something similar to this, and he said the obstacle becomes the way, and I was like, oh, that's like some Jedi sounding stuff, but it was. I think there's something to that where the obstacle becomes the way. So yeah.
Now, did you ever meet Jimmy, who's a power lifter, big dude, nice dude, huge beard?
I've heard of him. I haven't actually met him.
Monster, the man, nicest guy. Now his story is fantastic and perfect. Like he's a power lifter and he's good. Like he's strong, nicest guy, looks mean as hell. He said that he came to class once, and I want to say it was Laura. It might have been somebody else small. Absolutely beat the shit out of him, and he was just blown away. He's like, "Oh my god, I'm like almost 300 pounds. I couldn't do anything." He's like, "I need to learn this," and I was like, "That's great. That's what you need." But I mean, he huge guy, huge, and he had to learn it.
I think there comes a point for some people too, and I know like there's a bunch of people from BPD who trained for a bit and then sort of fell off, and I feel like they get to a certain point where they're like, well, I know enough that they've got that confidence. They're used to, okay, now I'm comfortable in bad situations.
Sure.
I know enough technique that I can get out of something, so I don't need to continue training. Thoughts?
It's a perishable skill, man. I mean, if you take a year or two off and you come back, you're not going to be what you were when you left. Like you're not. You're going to forget things. I mean, your muscle memory is going to start to go to shit. I mean, you have to, in some way at least just stay fresh with it. Like just, and then there's all different body types. Like, I'm sure like on the street, especially in Vermont, there's a lot of wrestlers walking around. If you walk into the wrong wrestler on the wrong day, they're going to give you a hard goddamn time. Like my hardest matches are against wrestlers. I hate wrestlers. I always get, the little fucking orc that's like 3 feet tall, 300 pounds, like his ears are smashed, and I'm standing across from this guy like, oh god, here we go. Like just you got to keep doing it if you want to, stay at that level or better.
So the question I ask everybody, so like today, my trifecta today, I got to train, and then I got in my cold plunge, and then I got in my sauna. So I hit a trifecta of some of my Twisted Remedies today.
Oh, dude, that cold plunge, man.
Oh, it's awesome.
God, I did it twice. Like I have a small one, and I showed Gino, and screw that. Oh my god, I got to my waist, and I was like, okay, it's not bad. But then like from here to here, maybe 30 seconds.
You just got to get in. Like, you can't get in like you're getting into the pool. Like you have to get in all the way up to your neck immediately.
Yeah, but oh man, oof.
Yeah, and you have to like if you're not breathing the right way, it will kick your ass too. Like that's a huge
Yeah,
part of it. But
yeah.
so those are some of my like I'm almost afraid to ask this, and obviously jujitsu is one of your answers clearly. But what are your twisted remedies that keep you grounded and moving forward and all of that?
I mean, I'm a pretty sick individual. I'll be the first to say it. I mean, since I was a kid, like again, like I could spend like hours talking about childhood trauma and shit I've been through, but just I would go on just crazy hikes. Like I would, I remember one day I ran up Mount Mansfield, like not the road, but one of the trails. And like I was like 19, I was just like having a day. I was like, you know what, I'm gonna go run up Mount Mansfield. And I did it, and then I came back down because a friend of mine went with me, and she had to go home. And I was like, well, I'm not done yet. So I walked her down the trail, and then I ran back up the trail. It's just, I'm always looking to do just anything. Obviously, a lot of it's physical because physical struggle and physical pain take your mind off things. Like I mean, me for breakups, I've had a long list of people I probably shouldn't have dated, but anyway, breakups are bad. A lot of people fall down these holes where like they just mope and they're just sad. Like yes, I was sad and I would mope, but then I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go to the gym, and like I would go on tears of just weights, and then I was like, you know what? Weights aren't enough. I'm gonna start running too, and I always start off for like a 1 mile or 2 mile jog, and it goes to 10 or 12, and I'm dying, but I was like, you know what? Nope. It's just, I mean, I just like to push myself. But then also on the backside of it, and I know that Gavin said this too, I'm a gamer. I love video games. Like I'll sit down, I'll play video games, but then, after like an hour or two, I'm sitting there and I was like, you know what? I'm being lazy. I got to go do something. And then I'll go work out or I'll go, do something stupid outside for a while and then I'm hurt. And then I'm like, ah, you know what? I'll play video games again. It's just, I try to stay as active as possible. And one thing that I'm running into now is again, I'm slowing down a lot. So that's driving me nuts. So I got to try to find something else that's not as physical, but it's hard to do.
Yeah,
But I mean, everybody's different. Mine's just,
you're kind of trading the the mental cobwebs for a little bit of like the body, like
yeah,
it's like a somatic thing instead of just living in your head. I think that's a
correct.
whatever physical thing you're doing, it's taking the place and filling
Yeah,
that space. Yeah.
yeah. And then I mean, one thing with me, I mean, it's not a big secret. I like to party like a rock star, and I always did that in my 20s with jujitsu and all this. Like I'm basically insane. Is what I'm getting at. It's just,
I
yeah,
think there are lots of leather bound books that will be written about that about
yes, yeah,
those times.
yeah, yeah. But I mean, everybody's different. It's just sitting around doesn't do anything. If you're just sitting around, it's not doing anything. Like you're not improving. You know, like the whole Jocko Willink, good thing. First time I heard that, I was like, holy shit, that's me. That's 100% what I do. Like stop sitting around, do something. It happened for a reason, but
Yeah.
find something good out of
What is coming up at UFAI? What's on the horizon?
it. So most recently, so we have the next Kumite coming up. So we used to run two a year, and then COVID hit. Um, so, so then it was once a year, and then after this last one, I got tons of feedback from people. Hey, oh, you should do this twice a year. I was like, okay, so we'll bring it back. So that's coming up on the 30th. So we actually have three guys who also are hopefully fighting in December. So we don't have a much of a fight team anymore, but we used to just be a bunch of fighters like MMA, Thai boxing, grapplers, and then a lot of people left, so it's been kind of quiet. But now the team's starting to make a comeback there. So we have three guys who are fighting coming up, and then Dennis has a super fight also coming up in New Jersey, which is gross. I hate going to New Jersey, but
Oh, that's in Jersey. I didn't know that.
I hate competing in Jersey. He hates competing in the drive sucks. It's just I've competed a bunch in Jersey. It's terrible. But anyway, yeah. So I mean, a lot of people have competitions coming up, and then on top of that, it's just a lot of new faces are coming through, which happens every year. A lot of old faces stopped. So, I still bug them. Thank God for social media, because, I will be in your messenger going, what are you doing?
Yeah.
But yeah, other than that, I'm just trying not to fall apart, and just keep going.
If somebody's listening to this and they're like, I need to relocate to Vermont and go train with Mike, how do they, or if they just want to connect, how do they reach you?
So, I mean, I'm pretty big on BJJ everything on Facebook. I've been put in Facebook jail a bunch of times because of that page. But I mean, a lot of people actually, have reached out through a BJJ everything. Like, hey, I'll be in Vermont. Where should I train? And I mean, I just don't go, oh, come train here. I go, well, here's Grind BJJ. A guy that I know runs it. They're, good. Here's Seth over, in Essex Junction. He's with Hoist Gracie. He's a good dude because I talked to him also. I say, here's Vince at Combat Fitness. And then I say, here's Trevor up in St. Like I give, the whole spiel, even the place where, I used to train. I go, well,
Right.
here is, here's this place. He's a really good instructor. They're, really good people. So there's that also. I don't throw them under the bus, but I give everybody, here's all of this. And then they always thank me.
Yeah, so you give them all the options and let them figure out what's a good fit. Yeah.
Yep. And I flat out tell them, I was like, I am far from traditional. I don't do warm-ups. I mean, you're not paying me to warm up. Don't call me professor, even though you guys do it all the time just to piss me off. It's fine. Just and we are very, very laid back, and I can show you a lot of jiu-jitsu, and I can show you a lot of leg locks. So, but yeah, Facebook is usually the best way to do it. Instagram sometimes, but that's more for my shit posting.
I've never encountered that.
yeah.
Well, this has been awesome. Thank you for coming on. It's weird doing this with people that I know, but it's
yeah, right.
It's always I always learn something, and this was very informative and good stuff.
Yeah, I don't know how you do the one-on-ones because so we had our podcast, but I mean it was 3 of us. And right. You just do the one-on-one, which is great, and you're not drinking, which is also great because we did that too.
Yeah, that ship sailed with my high liver counts after chemo.
Yeah.
now although I have found a lot of really good non-alcoholic beers that I enjoy sometimes. It's got a good mouth feel.
Yeah. No, she stopped drinking in January, just out of nowhere. It was great. And she's tried all these different non-alcoholic IPA, and some of them are really good.
Yeah, there's some good ones out there.
Yeah.
So it's it's not the same, but it's close enough.
It's true. It's true.
It won't kill me as quickly. So.
Right.
Well, I will say it one more time, Professor DesRosiers. Thank you for for coming on the podcast. It was a pleasure having you, and I'm glad you got on.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you.
So that brings us to the end of another episode of Twisted Remedies. If you're ever in the Burlington, Vermont area, please take the opportunity to drop in at UFAI or visit one of the other local academies that Mike mentioned. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to subscribe, share, or write a review. Every bit of that pays dividends in helping the podcast grow. As always, take care of yourselves and each other.